Ricky thought he was pretty smart, and when it was finally ready, he dumped the mosquitoes into the water. The adults flew away to parts unknown, and the juveniles and eggs all went into the still water and seemed to do fine. The little girl took care of Ricky's plants really well, which made Ricky happy. While he was gone, she eventually came back, and he handed her the box of remaining bees to take back to her base, as she called it. He explained that they were special bees, and that the adults would know what to do with them. Ricky suggested to her that they let a few go in their base and then try to share the bees around with their friends. He tried to explain how the plants needed these new bees, but didn't do a very good job. She explained nothing of theirs was growing and asked if this was why. He also said that their beehive was nearly wiped out and maybe this would fix it. The conversation seemed to make sense to her. Kid logic was awesome. Ricky knew he could trust her with the rest of the bees, and off she went. Beninka was proud of him for being so likable to the kid. She always tried to hide when the kid would come, but one day Martina said, "Who is the sad lady?" Ricky thought for a second and didn't know who Martina was talking about. As if Martina knew that Ricky was confused. "The gal in the corner, who is she?" Ricky looked around and saw Beninka, then looked back at Martina and responded, "She is very shy. You understand, don't you?" Martina nodded. "Maybe sometimes she'd like to go look at spiderwebs with me or something. They're very pretty after the rain." Beninka commented from the shadows, "You like spiders, huh?" Martina thought for a second. "It's not that so much. It's just that they keep laying webs all around me and lots of little baby nests. I was scared at first, but realized that they never hurt me. There are webs in the corners and the windows. I try to put the nests out of the way, because they put them in unsafe places sometimes. The spiders watch me all night and catch all kinds of bugs. Saved me from a few nasty ones, I think. One of them always seems like it recognizes me. Like it calls out to me. I'd saved one once. I think this is its great-great-grandkid or something." Ricky and Beninka both slowly nodded. Beninka spoke from the darkness. "Spider's pretty good. You'll be pretty strong and take care of a lot of people. Come back later and I'll have something for you. Now scram, we got she's to do." The girl smiled with a twinkle in her eye and took off with the bees. Beninka continued her thought and completed her idea. "Ricky, rustle up some grub. Gonna grab something for the brat." Beninka took off over to her side. Ricky shrugged and went to bang on houses with his hammer to find some termites to have with their supper. The termite population had exploded when the people population started dropping off. The termites were helping bring the planet back to its normal neutral state. Ricky was working to collect the termites so they could keep their energy up. His stove he'd been using worked really well to crisp them up, along with the other goodies they'd been foraging. The rhubarb was a great sugar. There were potatoes for spring through fall. The little girl had brought them some various seeds they said should grow if everything in the ecology went okay. There were frogs everywhere, keeping the bugs down, and the trees started making apples and cherries like they were supposed to. Ricky had started bashing parts of the fence down and moving the saplings that he'd found to the area. He wasn't doing a very good job of making it into an actual legitimate garden, but he was doing his best. Ricky would watch the sun and figure out what needed sun and what didn't. He ran the water off all the houses into buckets and ended up ripping off gutters to make new irrigation. Again, it wasn't very good, but it was all he could do. Beninka had been rustling up jars so they could jar up the extra if Ricky could make any. Ricky was trying to make all the food he possibly could. He hoped the bees were going to do their thing and save everyone. In a few days, the little girl came back and said the group's leadership was thankful for the bees. She said they released a few and then handed the bees off to their friends in other areas to release them in tiny portions until they would be around most of the Pacific Northwest. Benika presented Martina with a gift, which was some shirts Benika had found with various spiderweb patterns on them. Martina absolutely loved the shirts, immediately put one over her shirt that she was currently wearing, and the rest went in her pack. The next time Martina came back, she had her little spiderweb patterns on her, 380 that Ricky had given her so many weeks earlier. Benika and Ricky were proud. Martina gave them more seeds from the stronghold nearby. Then off she went. Everything went pretty well for a few months, planting and growing and trying to scavenge and lock the place down. But like all good things, Chapter 21, that clicking noise. Several months later, late summer. Sleep time. Ricky and Benika were looking out over the new lake to the east, listening to the frogs. What started with feeling was slowly confirmed. Something didn't look right to the east. They couldn't see it during the day, only at night while they were asleep. Some all-consuming force. Something was calling the darkness here, or maybe pushing it. It was a similar feeling, but distant. Maybe something he had felt in that blasted bunker and tunnel. Whatever it was, it now wanted their fresh crops, and it was coming fast. Morning. Ricky and Benika woke up in a cold sweat, even though it was warm outside. They both walked for several miles to the lake, but nothing was across it that seemed malevolent. Neither could shake the feeling, though. They both held each other tight and watched for an hour to make sure, but nothing happened. They both remained jittery for the morning, though, and decided to do something about it. Both had bartered with the stronghold nearby for more ammo. Ricky had more birdshot than he knew what to do with, and Benika was full up on mags again with a few extra boxes. They'd also been able to finagle and haggle for some oil, so they could keep their firearms in tip-top condition with strict orders that they never use the firearms against the good guys. That agreement went without saying, of course. The duo finally figured out what the explosions had been so many months before. A roving group of two was on a personal vendetta to wipe out all the old druggy dens in the area. Apparently they'd run into another one in the past and decided this was going to be their new thing in between stronghold visits. The new state patrol that came through during Ricky's escape of the city had ran into the druggies and tipped off the two-girl army. When that op was done, they sold the drone to the nearby stronghold as they passed. The plan was to use the drone to scout on the other side of the lake. One of these days, for reasons unrelated to Ricky and Benika's growing concerns, Martina had been telling them all this and lately had been showing up with a new spider friend on her shoulder. Nobody else could see the spider, of course, but they could. Benika noticed it at first. "Hey, I dig the spider. What's her name?" "Well, she says her name was Ocha, so that's what I call her. Don't tell anyone, though." "It's fine. Your secret is safe with us, of course." The three looked at each other, all with critters on their shoulders. It was quiet for a minute, and Ricky asked, "Ever dream of this place before, like, out where we are?" Benika elbowed him in the ribs pretty hard. Ricky doubled over, trying to decide whether he should whimper or crack up. He couldn't make up his mind, so he did neither and tried to stand back up straight without wincing too much. Martina ignored Ricky's plight and thought about it for a second. "I never really thought about it before. Maybe I will tonight." They all nodded and went through the rest of their normal routine for the day with more dread that they tried their best to ignore. It wasn't long working in the gardens and scavenging before it was nightfall. Sleep time. Ricky and Benika held hands and stared across the gigantic lake again, frogs talking about something or the other. The burps and croaks were unintelligible to the duo. After a while they felt a third presence, and from the west a little girl skipped around, poking and prodding at random things as she traveled. "We'll put one here, and one there, and one here, and one there. Oh, hey, guys." Martina was there with her spider buddy, Ocha. Benika spoke first. "Hey." Benika nodded to the east. "What do you think about that?" Martina thought about it for a second and stared hard to the east, looking with far more senses than what her eyes afforded. "We don't like it. There needs to be lots more webs, that's for sure. Martina seemed to shudder as if witnessing something way stronger than her and unquantifiable. Ricky knew that the plural meant her and the spider, not the nearby camp, but it was a good segue into the topic anyway.